we have a special guest with us tonight. Alex Rounaghi, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
Of course, it's great to have you. Um, for those of most Iranians, Ariel Rounaghi and Alex is a. Now, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong here, please, but you are the youngest of the city council ever elected in the city council of Laguna Beach. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Congratulations. And you being Iranian, that makes you the first Iranian American who is sitting on a city council board. We're going to talk about how you got here and how we can better understand the politics of from the city council level and up, and help us and help our listeners and those who are not familiar with you. Help us give us a little background about yourself, Alex. And now, in spirit of transparency, would you like for me to call you Mr. Council member, or would
No,
you like me
Alex.
to call you Alex or Ari
Alex,
Rounaghi?
Alex is perfect.
Alex, it is. Um, Tell me, give us a little bit of a background. What made you get into politics, and what are your futures? And when do we vote for you on November 4th as the president?
Well, thank you again for having me. And I think that my background starts sort of with my parents and my grandparents. So, on my dad's side, when he was 5 years old, he and his family went on a trip from Iran. He was born in Rash, and they came to America to visit Disneyland. And that trip, 50 years later, is still going on. And so my dad's family, they came to America just to visit Disneyland. They ended up staying and going to settling in Irvine and also buying a house in Laguna Beach. And so he was able to go to the Irvine School District and eventually go to UCLA and and so on my mom's side, my mom's family has been very involved in education. My grandma's a teacher, or has been a teacher in the past. My grandpa was the chancellor of the community college system, and so I think that my background has always given me, helped me understand the importance of public service and how, you know, how important it is to get involved in our communities to make positive change. And so growing up here in Laguna Beach, I was lucky enough to be born and raised in Laguna. Those values have sort of forged my path forward. So in high school, I was very interested in. I was able to go and be a Senate page for Senator Feinstein, and I got to see how the Senate worked and also how it didn't work. But just to see government firsthand, I was. I remember being frustrated by the traffic situation when I was in high school, and so I wanted to do something about it, and talk to someone at the city who could help me figure out a way to solve it. And what I ended up doing was submitting an application to be on the Parking, Traffic, and Circulation Committee, and so I think that kind of gives you some perspective on how I like to solve problems. And so I went to after graduating from the high school, I went to Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire, which I can tell you right now is a lot colder than Laguna Beach, California. And and when I was there, I think that furthered my interest in public service. I was involved in. I went to DC for a couple summers to do different. Um, I worked at the court system, and so I've always been passionate about ways to get involved in the community and solve problems. And then I was set to graduate in June 2020, and you all know what happened in March 2020. The world changed with the pandemic, and so that brought me back home to Laguna Beach, and then I just got more involved. I've joined, applied for, and was appointed to the city's Housing and Human Services Committee, and I became the chair of that committee. And then so I've been involved in trying to find solutions to the housing crisis, because in Laguna Beach, just like the rest of the California, we want to be a place where young people can live here. We want our seniors to not be priced out of the community. We want artists, workers. We want a broad range of people to be living part of our community. And so I was very involved with those issues and getting experience kind of at the city level. And then a day before the filing deadline, so in August for city council, I just thought, I was like, why not just run for city council? Because I was so passionate about all these different issues, and that's what I ended up doing, and I have not had any regrets since. So I there were 7 candidates for 3 different seats, and I was the top vote getter, and it's just been very exciting and humbling to see how excited the community is, but also just I take the obligation really seriously about trying to study the issues and understand how to be effective as a city council member. So yeah, I took the oath of office in December, and it's been good so far. I don't regret my decision yet.
Well, it is still way too early. You still have a few months. How long is your term?
A 4-year term.
A 4-year term.
Yeah.
A lot of Iranian Americans in U.S. and around the U.S., especially in California. Not everybody is involved, and not everybody is, me included. We're not exactly sure what a city council, the council member, the roles and responsibilities, the structure of it. Help us understand how it works a little bit.
Yeah. So so we have what's called a city manager, city council form of government. So there's 5 city council members, and and maybe I'll start with what the city does. So the city is, we focus on the police, fire. We approve different projects. So if you want to build a house, or you want to build apartments, or you open up a new business, that goes through the city. We are responsible for making sure everything's clean and our roads are safe, and infrastructure projects like that. Those are kind of the big focuses at the city level. And the way that the city's governed is there's 5 city council members, and it's a part-time position, so not pay. You don't do it for the pay. And we oversee the city manager, and the city manager is basically the day-to-day head of the organization. Yeah, and we actually have an Iranian American city manager, Sheree Dupuy, who's also the first woman city manager in Laguna Beach history.
This is an automatic invitation for her to come and speak with us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Please speak to her, and if you can, put us in contact, and we'll go from there. But go ahead, please. Please go ahead.
So yeah, basically what the city council does is we set the policy, and then the city manager, she implements it. Okay. And so we do different ordinances and resolutions. One of the first resolutions that I introduced was with the mayor, a resolution standing in solidarity with the people of Iran and condemning the
Islamic regime. Right.
Exactly. So I think, even though the city isn't, we're not involved in foreign policy decisions, it's the federal government. But I think it's important that cities show kind of their values and standing for human rights. And it goes a long way in showing that members of the community, because we do have a Iranian American community in Laguna Beach, showing them and the rest of the world where we stand with the people.
First and foremost, as an Iranian American, thank you for for introducing and ensuring that resolution passes. You're absolutely right. This is very close and very dear to a lot of Iranian Americans within, really, not just Iranian Americans, Iranians everywhere.
Yes.
There have been a number of cities within Orange County that have followed suit. There are a number of cities that have not yet passed that resolution, and I'm working with one or two of those cities directly, and their sentiment is exactly what you said. This is first and foremost unprecedented, and we don't do anything with the international community. No, they don't have any correction. Not international community. We don't interact with. We don't have or enforce international policy.
Yep.
So that's one of the things. But as an Iranian American, thank you. Thank you for getting this passed. It's very this is a very emotional thing for a lot of Iranians. It's a built up of 45 years of we've reached this point. Going back to roles and responsibilities of a city council member, help me understand when a resolution is introduced. There's a process that it goes through, and there is the process of the wording and the. Help us understand that
Yeah.
aspect of it, please.
Yeah, so I think every city has different processes for how they do it. So for ours, for example, what I did is I got the mayor to we did it together, the two of us, and then we asked the city manager to basically look at some of the other ones that were passed and draft language in the resolution. And I think one of the important parts about the resolution that I would say to other cities who don't want to do it is, even though that the city is not involved with foreign policy, the members of Congress and members of the United States Senate are. And so when they see that a city is saying you need to prioritize this issue, that can help actually lead to change in terms of the United States' foreign policy. So that's part of it. But yeah, so that we worked with the city staff and members of the community to write the resolution. Um, and and then it was agenda put on our agenda, and members of the public had the opportunity to come and weigh in, because in California, every time you have an agenda item, the public has the right to weigh in and give their input. And then the council members, they all, we had a very brief discussion, and everyone was totally 100% in agreement with it. And then
It
we
was
voted.
unanimous then.
It was unanimous, yeah. And there wasn't even any concern that I heard from any of the council members in Laguna Beach. And then what we also, as part of it, is we directed the staff, because the city has a lobbyist, to make sure that the mayor was sending a letter to the members of Congress asking them to support certain legislation that would help achieve the foreign policy objectives that we want.
So, if I understood you correctly, yes, a city council a may not have direct involvement with foreign policy, but because of their position, they are able to somewhat influence or put pressure on, if you will, for certain foreign policy to be achieved. If I've got this
Absolutely.
correct.
Absolutely.
A introduction of this resolution of this type, is this something that needs to come from the city council member, or is this something that a general public can suggest?
I think that the general public can go to the city council and ask them to bring it forward. And so at city council meetings, there's always a time during the agenda where you can talk about items that are not on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the opportunity. If a city hasn't already done one of these resolutions, that's the opportunity to go to the city council and say, we need you to bring forward this resolution. And so that's sort of the opportunity. But yeah, ultimately you need a city council member or the city staff to get it onto the agenda.
Okay, so as public, we can request it, and it's ultimately up to the council member and the staff and the city staff, as you said, for them to be able to add that item to the agenda. And chances are an item being added to agenda not being accepted or approved, it's pretty slim, because by the time it does get to that, it's added to the agenda, I'm quite certain it's gone through its process and filters and wording and what have you. Is that correct?
I think so. And it's very hard to see how someone could ever vote against something like this. But I think the key is, like you're indicating, how do you get it onto the agenda?
The Iranian American community here, what can we do? First and foremost, when I'm assuming when you ran for city council, The majority of the Iranian Americans voted for you. If I'm not mistaken, probably everybody. It wouldn't surprise me if some people moved to Laguna Beach just that they can vote for you and stay there. I was at the Iranian gathering on the I believe it was toward end of December that
Yeah.
you spoke, and you spoke well as you are now. Question that I've been asked to ask you is: one, are you married? Two,
No.
you're not married. All right. So I'm the answer, Alex, is going to cost you, sir, and you. I'm quite certain you're going to get a lot of offers. The second topic that I have, the second question that they have: do you speak Farsi, or
I
are you fluent in Farsi? Let me put it this way.
no, I unfortunately don't speak Farsi.
And
I
that's
wish I did.
it's from a dad. I have two daughters, and they don't speak Farsi either. So I'm, by no means this was trying to put you in a difficult position. From an Iranian American community, what can we do to get more involved?
Hmm.
What can we do to be more effective? What
Hmm.
can we do to better organize and
Yeah.
perhaps have a voice that represents the interest of the Iranian American community within the government? What do we do?
Yeah, I think there's an expression that I've often heard that if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're on the menu. And so it's so important that people that you have a seat at the table of when where government decisions are made. So I think my first piece of advice is just following local politics, looking at the agendas for your local city council meeting, giving comment on an issue if it's something that matters to you, but also doing your research and not just coming in, because I think it's important to focus on the facts and the evidence whenever you're making an argument. And so I think that's where I would start. But then also in cities have a lot of different committees and commissions where the city council will appoint people like to serve on the planning commission, for example, or like I was telling you before, I was on the housing and human services committee, the arts commission that we have in Laguna Beach. So getting involved with those different bodies is a really good way to get your foot into the door and get more involved and be helpful in using whatever experience you have in your life or from your profession to help the city government and the city council make good recommendations.
You you did mention, and I'm quite certain because of my age, I don't remember you when you first got onto the commissions that you were headed or you were involved with. Help me understand and our listeners understand that process.
Yeah.
How do you get added to a commission, or is that something that's voted on, or
Yeah.
you go from there?
So, like, it depends really on the city. Every city is going to be different, but I think most cities are similar. Like in Laguna Beach, twice a year, I think there's an opportunity for application. So you fill out an application, and you can talk to your city clerk in whatever city you're in to understand how this process would work. But then you fill out an application, you include your resume and state, why do you want to be on the committee? And then in Laguna Beach, the city council votes for the commission. So we just, my last city council meeting, we had 80 people apply to serve for and 30 seats on city commissions. So we voted on each person to see, or voted for each commission on who we wanted to have serve. And so that's kind of the process is a public interview with the city council where they might ask you questions about why do you want to serve, what do you bring to the table, and then getting voted on by the council about whether they want to appoint you to a city commission.
Is this one of those? And the question is going to be asked: does it matter who you know?
Oh, I think it probably does. Yeah, I think it does matter to some degree, and so it's about making sure that you're able to talk to get to know the city council members and
So you
explain
have
to
to
them.
establish a relationship with them,
You don't have to, but
but it's
there
best that you do.
it's smart to, and tell them ask them what their goals are, get their advice about, the direction of the city, and then see how you could um, help, provide your whatever expertise you have to advance those goals. So I think that's definitely part of it is, and you don't want your first involvement to the city to be when you apply for a city commission, because then they're going to say, well, where have you been over the past, couple of months? So my advice would be that you go to the city commission or committee that you want to serve on and watch their meetings. So then when you apply, you say, oh, I've been to 5 different meetings. I know how this all works. When I get appointed, I'm going to be ready to hit the ground running to be
So
a good
building your resume in a way of being exposed to it, building your
absolutely.
resume by having them seeing you or and see you getting involved. The thing is, a lot of people within the Iranian community, right or wrong, and I'm quite certain I'm going to get letters and texts about why do you say this, but it is what it is. We're not as involved within the city or the local government as much as we should be, considering the size of our community, considering the level of education, from the finances, from all aspects of it. And I don't want to, what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't want to toot our own horn, but Iranian American community is amongst the highest top-rated communities or minorities, if you will, within the United States. How do we get them involved?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think people need to sort of take the initiative on their own to get involved. And what you can tell them is if a 16-year-old in high school can figure out how to get involved and apply, then what's their excuse to not get involved? So I think that's what I would say as part of it. But also, I think I think it's important that elected officials also make sure that they have members of the community on their staff, and do proactive engagement to the community. So, and it's also not just the Iranian community that's not involved. It's a lot of different communities aren't involved. Part of the problem is sometimes for a lot of these city issues, it's only people who are retired, and they're the only ones who have the time to get involved, and that's not representative of the whole population. So I think it's key that that you know that you get involved, and you just yeah. So I think it's just so important, because if you're, like I said before, if you're not at the table, then
You're on the
then
menu.
you
I
yeah.
love that saying. That's absolutely, I love that saying. From the other side of the table,
Yeah.
you being a council member in the city of Laguna Beach. Laguna Beach, right? Sorry. And between, there's so many different cities, and I'm still somewhat new to California. So if we were in Texas, you and I'd be having a completely different conversation, sir. But from this side of the fence, how can the Iranian community, Iranian American community, better help you and other Iranian Americans that are on city councils and city managers and in local politics? How can we better support you?
Well, the good thing is I have a 4-year term, so I have, but in 2 years I might be calling. But yeah, I think what the Iranian community can do is help people who want to run for office, help get them elected. So donating to different candidates, uh, knocking on doors for them, making phone calls for them, writing postcards, putting in the effort to help Iranian Americans get elected. The um, the Iranian American Democratic Club IADC, they supported my campaign and endorsed me, and so that was helpful. So I think that kind of stuff in working with organizations that do that work, and just getting what, because it's hard when somebody puts their hat when they step forward to run for office. It can be a really scary thing, and it's a very challenging thing to do. You have to raise all this money and do a million different things. And so I think just providing support however you can to that individual is going to help them get elected, and that's so important.
Pretty much roll up your sleeves and do whatever it takes
Exactly.
to make that thing happen.
Yeah. Stop talking about it and start doing things to help the person, right? Because it's we all can talk, about, but
Definitely Iranians can do that. Yes.
yeah, all people. But yeah, I think that's the key is rolling up your sleeves and doing the work, like you said.
From a personal perspective, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts about what's going on in within the Iranian American community now and within the Iran itself? And I don't want to put you in a difficult spot.
Yeah.
Before you answer that, I want to make certain everybody understands that the questions that I'm asking you, we did not, you and I didn't have a conversation of, and you didn't tell me what questions to ask you. You did not limit, or you didn't tell me what we can or cannot discuss. So you left that open, and I want to make certain everybody understands this. That first and foremost, I appreciate that we're having an open conversation. None of these questions have been prepared. God knows from the way I asked them. So I want to make sure that is said in parentheses. But you were saying, please.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's really probably one of the most complex foreign policy issues just in the world, right? Because um, if there was an easy solution, it would have been pursued. But I think that the key is for the United States and all democracies around the world to support the Iranian people who are fighting for exactly what we have here, the right to have free speech, to protest, to have a government that represents them. And I think it's important that we sanction the current government to have punishment on them for the actions that are taking place, but at the same time it's a tough balancing act because those sanctions will also hurt the people of Iran. And so I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think the key is to have is to keep pushing forward with sanctions, keep building. It's all about international coalitions. How can we get the entire international community, not just the United States, but behind us in achieving these goals? And then, yeah, and I wish I had a really good solution
There is
for.
none. Yeah.
But I mean, I think that President Obama with the Iran nuclear deal, I think to some degree, what that was doing was helping to create collaboration between the two countries, with also with enforcement to stop the country from developing a nuclear weapon, which is something that can never happen. But I wish I had a good answer, but I think it's inspiring to see that people are willing to put their lives on the line for their country and for their future and their kids' future. And so yeah, it's
one of the things that Alex, one of the things that it has really blown the world away was the fact that this revolution this time is being led by women.
Yes.
It shows the strength and the true power of the Iranian woman, and all these years and every injustice that they've experienced throughout these years. It's just it's absolutely incredible.
Yes.
As an Iranian American man, I am so proud of them. I am just blown away. But anyway, so as a extended offer, this radio station will always be available to you. If there's anything you need within the Iranian community, we'll be able to, if we can help you in any way, shape, or form. Alex, please feel free to welcome. You and I hope we can stay in touch and we can stay in contact. And as far as inviting the city manager for the Laguna Beach, please talk to her, and she too is welcome. And I'm, especially being a woman, I'm quite certain a lot of Iranian women will be inspired and will want to hear from this. As our
Absolutely.
guest, one of the rules of our guest, and I haven't prepared you for this for obvious reasons. As our guest, in the end of our conversation, you have the floor to send your message to the Iranian American, to the Iranians across the world that are
Yeah.
listening to you now.
I think what I will end with is how important it is to get involved in our communities to make a difference. And, we were talking just now about how the women of Iran are literally risking their lives to have a government that serves their interests. And so there's no excuse for any of us not to get involved here where we have these rights and we can get involved and make better decisions for our community, but our country's future, which is so important. So I would say that that's so important, is getting involved in the public policy conversations that are happening. And then what I would also offer is that I'm happy if anyone wants to reach out to me to give advice about how to get involved with your city or anything like that. I'm happy to be a resource and provide
Thank you.
whatever support I can to other people who want to get involved and potentially run for office.
Thank you, Council Member Alex Rounaghi. I enjoyed talking to you, sir, and thank you for accepting our invitation. And as always, you're always welcome in Sedai Dust. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing on behalf of and working with the different cities to get the resolutions passed. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And are you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye bye.